Georgia. Key facts. Abbreviation GA. Nickname the Peach State. Capital Atlanta. Flower Cherokee Rose. Tree Live Oak. Bird Brown Thrasher. Hooray, not a cardinal again. Motto Wisdom, Justice, and Moderation. I leave Beaufort, South Carolina, and head towards the southern state line. The Savannah River forms the boundary with Georgia and gives its name to an extraordinary town. Savannah, Georgia is perhaps the most perfectly preserved of all the southern cities, certainly the most glamorous and upscale. Famed for its 24 residential squares, its grand antebellum townhouses, lush gardens, eccentric charm, and bohemian atmosphere, the hostess city of the South leapt to popular consciousness in 1994 with the publication of John Berend's Midnight in the Garden of God and Evil, a book that went straight to the top of the New York Times bestseller list and stayed there for most of the year. It charted real-life steamy and deadly goings-on among Savannah's social elite. There was a hustler, an antique dealer, a drag queen called the Lady Chablis, and a cast of sundry other wild and exotic blooms. A few years later, the book was made into a film with Kevin Spacey playing the antiques dealer and featuring Jude Law as the gay lover he apparently murders. Jim Williams, the real-life counterpart of the character Spacey played, was cleared after an unprecedented 4 trials of all murder charges, but died just months after this final exoneration. Historic Savannah. Jim Williams was important for reasons aside from the scandal that led to the book and film that led in turn to the great boom in Savannah's tourist industry that goes on to this day. He was more than an antique dealer. He was one of the first to embark on the project of saving, renovating, and restoring the great old houses and squares of Savannah for bringing the town to its current pitch of splendor and charm. In all of Savannah today, I do not suppose there is anyone who knows more about the houses of the historic district than Celia Dunn, the town's best-known realtor, or estate agent as we would say in British English. I spent a delightful 3 hours in her company unlocking the doors of grand houses for which she has the key and finding myself in closed worlds of tasteful grandeur and graceful splendor that are almost too perfect to be bearable. Everywhere we go, Celia is stopped and greeted. She is as well known a landmark in Savannah as Monterey Square and quite as grand. As we leave our last historic house, someone calls out from the street, "Happy holiday, Celia," and I am reminded with a shock of where we are in the calendar. Today is the 3rd Wednesday in November, which can only mean that tomorrow is Thanksgiving Day. I have a 200-mile drive ahead of me and holiday traffic too. Better hustle, Stephen. Thanksgiving at Blackwater. I drive past the cotton fields, becoming more and more astonished by them until I just have to stop and look closer. What an insane plant! It really is just an ordinary woody weed with no distinguishing characteristic except that it has cotton wool pads on top of it. It is not as if there are other plants that are slightly like it or whose development tends towards suggesting that one day a cotton plant might exist. It just seems to have arrived full-born in the world with this ridiculous gift. Without it, what on earth would I be wearing? Without it, would there be such an impressive driveway as now I point to the taxi down? Without it, would there be a true South? I am a guest of a remarkable lady called Mrs. Nancy Schmo, who at the age of 91 runs the Blackwater Plantation House and Estate in Quitman, southern Georgia, very close to the Florida border. Her family have gathered around her for Thanksgiving, included are her 3 daughters, 2 of her grandchildren, and her older sister, 98-year-old Aunt Sneed, who runs her own estate further south. As you would hope from the names, these are remarkable and captivating women. In the kitchen of the big house, I find a group of 3 sisters, African American, who are cooking up the great Thanksgiving feast. It is hard not to feel slightly embarrassed talking to these loyal black servants. They have grown up and lived here. All their lives, they helped bring Mrs. Moe's children to the world, and their language and loyalties seem to belong to another world. From what I can observe, unacceptably sentimental or patronizing as it may appear, these women are very happy and would not want to be anywhere else. They are given towards pensionable age, but the family will not get rid of them. All very patriarchal and disgraceful, no doubt, but it puts me in mind of an occasion in New York many years ago. I was having dinner with a pair of well-known novelists, one of whom was married at the time to a Southern girl, who began to get rather angry at the occasional glance and references to the red-necked right-wing South being made by the white New York literati around the table. "Damn you," she shouted suddenly, "we all go about the South and how racist we are, but how many of you have got any black friends? There are black folks in Tennessee into whose arms I run. Whenever I go back and we hug and kiss each other and cry for joy. We grew up together, we love each other. None of you even knows a single black person." At which she rose and left the table, choking back tears. The relationship began with the enforced slavery, which everyone can surely agree was a wicked and monstrous institution. Today, however, there is economic segregation instead for most African Americans, upset by a rising black middle class in areas like Atlanta and the New South, as they call it. But even now, a few pockets exist, as here, of a strange codependent relationship which may look patriarchal and patronizing to our eyes, but which is a real relationship nonetheless, and surely beats the hell out of life in a drug-infested ghetto. Well, I am not here to judge or to presume to understand. I am here to eat. But first, horrible to relate, the subject of writing is brought up. A Tennessee bolting house. Outside, a Spanish moss profusely drips, as it should, from the live oaks and distant cypresses. All is as it ought to be at the plantation house in the deep south, except that I am expected to get on a horse. Blackwater has a celebrated, apparently, stable of Tennessee walking horses, a breed of animal unfamiliar to me. Oh, they are so gentle and docile and sweet. Docile rhymes with fossil in American, which makes it sound even gentler. You will adore them. Yes, but they won't adore me, I whine. Nonsense. They are the kindest, calmest horses in the whole wide world, you'll see. We go round to the stables where a large horse called Shadow is being saddled for me. Look, I tried to explain, for some reason horses really don't like me, no matter how calm and friendly I am. Nonsense, they giggle. I step up from a block and just manage to get my feet in the stirrups before the sweetest, gentlest, the most docile horse in the whole wild world screams, bucks, and bolts. The family are all so astonished it takes them some little while to realize what has happened. And some little while it is filled by me shouting "Whoa!" and pull it as hard on the reins as I dare, as below me a ton of mad jumping flesh gathers its hindquarters and prepares to charge a wooden fence. A last desperate yanks on the lines, and the crazed beast slows down enough to give the others time to catch up and grab it. Naturally, everybody thinks it is hilarious. Well, he's never done that before, I declare. Who'd have thunk it? I should have made it clear, as say, every time I have got on a horse. It has ended with the remark you have just made. He's never done that before. But Snowflake is usually so calm. I have heard that and remarks like it 20 times at least. There's something about me and horses. Well, make the most of the comedy, because that is the last time I shall ever be seen on the back of a horse for the rest of my natural life. I dismount with as much dignity as I can from my last ever horse. On the way back to the big house, I stop off at the old kitchen, a separate dwelling now. Some family members have boiled up peanut oil in 2 enormous vats. I help them drop a large turkey in each one. Southern fried turkey is going to be an interesting Thanksgiving. Before eating, we gather on the porch where prayers are said and America the Beautiful is sung. The Schmurls are a very musical family, and once again my eyes are pricked by the words and music of an alien anthem. The fried turkey is more delicious than I ever believed turkey could be. The whole dinner is wonderful. Actually, it is lunch, but as it with Christmas in Britain, custom allows one to call it dinner. Collard greens, sweet potatoes with marshmallows melted inside, and black-eyed peas give it a southern soul food quality, but the New England cranberry and the delectable pumpkin pie keep the whole meal firmly within a traditional framework that has been repeated up and down America for over 200 years. It is to America what Passover is to the Jews, an annual ritual that retells the allegedly fanciful and untrue story of a people and their tribulations, and in so doing reinforces identity and national belonging. A fine Thanksgiving tradition is for everyone around the table to say what it is in life they have to give thanks for. When it comes to my turn, I have no difficulty in being thankful for Southern hospitality, for astoundingly good food, and for the privilege of being invited in the home of strangers and asked to join them in celebrating America's unique festival. I do not add, for no one need know that I am also profoundly thankful that my trousers have an elasticated waistband.